Day 3 of the Diddy trial. Wow. So the testimony continued with Cassie Ventura on the stand with the prosecution, grilling her about all of the salacious activity that she and things that she has been put through, and the abuse, both emotionally and physically, by Diddy. And it was interesting revelations and things that came out that just continued to get more and more. I mean, I got to ask, when is this movie going to come out? Will there be a movie? I'm sure Hollywood is basically just, chomping at the bit and want the rights to get this whole story. Someone's putting something together already, because this would probably be, I don't even know what rating they'd have to give this, but this is going to be something else. So just real quick rundown of things that took place, and then my quick assessment on where this goes, because today, Thursday, this will be the 4th day of testimony, and I believe today is when defense is supposedly going to cross-examine Cassie today, and that can reveal a lot, depending on the strategy, depending on what gets brought up, what's allowed to be discussed, because there was some legal items that were brought up yesterday by the defense and by the prosecution about what can and can't, what exhibits can and can't be allowed regarding the defense, and how that whole thing works. And we'll see what happens today, because the defense is going to go in, and we already know, if you're not paying attention, you just want a quick summary of this. The prosecution opened this whole thing up with essentially creating the picture, painting the picture that this guy, Sean Combs, Diddy, the defendant, was an abusive bastard of a man controlling this young woman. Now, keep in mind, this is a criminal case, and they are coming after him for sex trafficking and racketeering, which has nothing to do with whether or not he was a bad, abusive boyfriend to this young lady. So I just want to reiterate that at the top of this, that the prosecution is eventually going to have to go down the road of making the case that he was in control of an empire, criminal enterprise that was trafficking people for the purposes of prostitution and drug-related activities, and he was, the mastermind behind all this, and he, through a certain amount of control, through criminal control, through physical violence and such, that he was controlling all of this. That's what they're going to have to prove. So if you connect the dots here, connect the lines together, clearly, they are establishing the idea that his physical control, the way he did things, and some of the testimony that Cassie came out with regarding bodyguards and regarding him threatening other people and threatening people around her, and how he orchestrated things, how he moved things. There was a discussion about security surrounding, in a restaurant, this one guy, and all these different things. So, excuse me. All of those things are going to eventually lead to the prosecution making their case of racketeering and sex trafficking. So we shall see. Now, some of the things that came out yesterday, I don't even know how to start, where to start. Some of the things that Cassie described, just about the amount of sores in her mouth from oral activity, the amount of oral activity, the description of some of the hotel rooms and some of the places after these freak off events, and the fluids and such, and the things that were left behind, and the fact that while she was on her period, and Diddy apparently wanted her to still engage in these activities with these SEX workers. The Jonathan Oddie situation, this guy who's currently locked up, but he's the guy that was like waving the gun in the Trump hotel, and he is back in 2018, I believe. He had come up into the public consciousness as being a SEX slave for Diddy and Cassie. And I think back then a lot of people kind of wrote that off and they weren't quite sure, but now it looks as if he might be coming to testify. We'll see what happens there. Not coming, I don't know how, I guess he's in jail, so I'm not sure how that works, but apparently that's supposed to happen. There were some things regarding an assault. So I don't even want to get into it. There's other things that Diddy apparently liked to have done to him, that when Cassie was finished with whatever escort, and that escort put fluid onto Cassie, Cassie would then take that fluid to Diddy, and Diddy would like to have that fluid put on him. I think that was the most polite way of saying that. Do with that with what you will as far as your visuals. She described an assault that took place in a car after a party where apparently she was talking to some producer. I guess Diddy got jealous, and then in that car, she punched Diddy in the face, but she hit him, and then Diddy proceeded to stomp on her on the floor of the car. And then, when she got out, Diddy's security team and assistant, wrangled her up or whatever, chased her down and kept her in a hotel for like a week. So that right there can probably speak to some of the trafficking and the racketeering part, having these people work for him and do that. She described a situation in 2018 where Diddy forced himself upon her. I think they got together for some dinner to sort of hammer out the finalization of their relationship or whatever that was, discussion about, hey, this is the end, love you too, that kind of thing. Which seems kind of, take that with whatever you want. After that, he went to her place and RAPE'd her in her living room. And she said his eyes were black and it was just like this empty thing. And then he finished inside of her and then he left. Now, what I found interesting was that I guess it was a few days later or whatever, she went to have sex with him, make love, and enjoyed herself. And we had a good time. This is what she testified. Now, I'm going to get back to that in a second, but I just wanted to quickly just sort of go through what happened. So this is what happened. There was that incident. Then there was also the Kid Cudi discussion about in 2011. She had a relationship with Kid Cudi, or it was kind of back and forth on whatever it was with Diddy, and Diddy threatened to have his car destroyed, which we know there was that incident took place. So she mentioned the Kid Cudi thing. She mentioned assault on one of her girlfriends, and how that whole took place. And some girl got hung over a balcony and then dragged back in and then thrown into some balcony furniture, or whatever that was, on the 17th floor of an apartment in LA. And he mentioned another friend, or she mentioned another friend, that he assaulted with a wooden hanger. And there was also some discussion about the fact that she had lost friendships and things with people over time, I guess because of a lot of these things, which begs the question, the way I see that, a lot of people around her were probably telling her, girl, you need to get out of this, or you need to go, or why are you sticking around? Like, you're putting everyone in a bad situation. Why don't you just get out of this? And apparently she stuck around. But again, we're going to get back to that in a second when I close this out and give you my opinion on that. She also gets into, and again, this goes to the sex trafficking, well, not the trafficking, but more the racketeering portion of this, that he assaulted employees, and she had witnessed several situations where he punched one employee in the head. Then there was also a witness known as Mia. He dragged this assistant out to a balcony after she wouldn't give him his phone. But that witness, Mia, I believe, is supposed to be testifying, but like behind like security or privacy glass or something like that, a screen, so to keep her protected. So there's that. Then there's the 2019, after the relationship, she was seeing her now husband, and he was sending threatening messages about getting the money that was owed to him. Apparently Diddy's trainer Cassie's husband was Diddy's trainers, and then trained Cassie, and Diddy paid for it. So he was like wanting the money back for that whole situation. Awkward stuff here. And she, again, whenever she's asked about why didn't you go and all this other stuff, she felt ashamed, she was embarrassed, abused, and she even wanted to off herself at some point from all the trauma that she had been through, which again is understandable. This girl is no question a victim. Now, I just want to detail things. She talked about the lawsuit, and we learned that it was actually, so the speculation, or I think what she asked for, was $30 million. She ended up receiving $20 million. She wrote everything down. She started writing everything down. And I believe that was at the behest of her mother and probably this guy who would soon turn out to be her husband and baby daddy. I'm sure they were like, oh, write stuff down and you should go get whatever you are deserved from this. I'm pretty sure that came up. Let's be honest. I'm pretty sure that came up. The idea that, hey, you can get some money. I don't think that was off the table. And she started sending chapters, or started sending portions of the book which detail some of all the activity and the abuse and things that took place over the years. She started sending it to Diddy. Diddy ignored it or whatever and never got back to her. And then she sent it to an assistant, KK or somebody, and they were kind of like, we want nothing to do with this. But eventually they continued to push this, and it got settled. Like within 24 hours, she got like $20 million. Diddy was like, okay, fine. And that's what happened. So, if you're wondering also about that $20 million and the NDA that was associated with it, because there was an NDA signed, she can't talk about any of this, especially getting a $20 million payout, but the criminal case supersedes or overrides the NDA. So testifying in a criminal case, you're allowed to do that and talk about things that you previously would not be able to discuss, considering the NDA in place from the civil case. So that's that. Now, that's pretty much most of what took place yesterday. Like I said, probably some minor details here and there and little other things that came up. So many things that are just too much to talk about, on YouTube, and you got to censor everything. And it's a lot of it is just like really, really bad. Here's my thing. Like I keep telling you all, I think, I got to reiterate this every time I talk about it because I have different opinions based on what's happening each day. And I've seen other people post up about this, especially, women, that it's all, some people are saying, why didn't she get out? And people want to automatically say she's 100% a victim. She had nothing to do with anything. And that's it. And if you think anything else, there must be something wrong with you. As I said previously, I believe this was a young, innocent woman who at the time met this powerful bastard of a guy, control freak, an absolute monster of a man. She met him with stars in her eyes. She was swayed by the money and by the fame and the power. She was bought into his world. She was seduced into that life. I believe that she participated in certain things on her own in an effort to maintain her status within that world. And she definitely benefited from a lot of that stuff. So like I've mentioned before, and I've ended some of these videos where I say, look, if you dance with the devil, you have to wait for the song to end. And I believe that some of the price that she paid for all of the things that she received was this horrible abuse, both emotionally and physically, from this man. So I'm not excusing his behavior, and I'm not suggesting that she was down with every single detail of it. But I do believe there's a certain amount of responsibility on Cassie's part. And I don't think that's unreasonable to say. That doesn't diminish her as a victim. I'm simply making the case. It's a certain amount of, hey, look, 10, 11 years. And then getting back to the testimony yesterday, on Wednesday, about he forced himself sexually on her and finished inside her. And then a week later or a couple of days later, she went and she voluntarily got with him and she enjoyed it. We had a good time. Like this back and forth. Not to mention she was seeing multiple people at the same time. She was seeing her then, boyfriend, her current husband. She was seeing him and seeing Diddy sort of on and off. It was like a back and forth thing. This does not read like a person that 100% knew, okay, as soon as I get a chance, I got to get away from this man. I know that Diddy had threats over her and he was holding certain things over her, but I just feel like over 10, 11 years, there was a point where she could have turned the tables. She could have started writing things down and could have started doing things her own way to get at Diddy long before it got this far. I mean, you're to the point where you've got urination and things taking place and things that were just like, and she describes the UTIs, the infections that she had, and how the medications antibiotics were no longer even working on them, and she was continuing to do all these things. Again, to reiterate, I am not saying that she didn't suffer or was not in pain or was not against some of these things. I'm saying that I believe there's a portion of this lifestyle, a certain amount of it was consensual, and I believe that Diddy was just way over the line when it comes to freaky, and it spiraled out of control, and his control over her did have an effect on her. I understand that, and she was in love with him. She made this clear. So it was her weakness, right? She could have. You can only allow someone to control you to the point that you allow them to control you. That's how I see that. She could have taken the time to figure out how to get away from this guy. She had people around her. She could have figured it out. I just believe that Diddy stood to lose much more if certain things came out and if certain things went down. He stood to lose much more than she did. Him blackmailing her about her career, and she didn't have a career. Let's just be honest. Whether you blame that on Diddy or not, because he signed her to a 10-record deal and basically had a bunch of music that never came out and he was controlling it. Yeah, that's true. But it's not as if she was some huge celebrity like that was going to be scandalized. She was a nobody, and she was in that under his boot. But he had more to lose if she started talking. And what was it? It's not like he was a unknown man that had her chained in a basement somewhere. He was Diddy. He had a reputation. He had business to run. He wasn't going to. He didn't physically hold a pistol to this woman's mouth. Like, she could have figured out how to tell the authorities, how to go get protection, how to figure this out. And again, I know people are going to say, well, it's impossible. She was a victim. She was a young girl and there was nothing she could do. I don't believe that. I simply don't believe that. I believe he had a large amount of control of her. He was a bastard. Again, I reiterate, I think she was a victim. There's no question. She was physically and emotionally abused. I just think there was poor decisions made on her part due to the fact that she was starry-eyed. She was benefiting from the lifestyle, and she wanted some of that. She was in love with him, and she continued to make poor choices. That's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to end on that. And it'll be interesting to hear today's testimony, to hear the defense cross-examination of her, because I believe they're going to bring up past experiences of hers and text messages and certain things that might confirm her complicit or her consent to some of these activities, and that's going to paint a different picture. Now, again, I think that it's too late for Diddy to survive the impact of this and what we already know of him and his character based on the way he treated her and what we've already heard from her. I think he belongs under a jail. So I just want to make that clear as well. I don't want anyone coming out of this video or hearing my thoughts on Cassie and thinking that I'm saying, well, it was her fault. And, I'm not saying that at all. So just again, if you didn't understand what I said, go back and listen again. And maybe I'll have to reiterate it or come up with another way of saying it in the next video I do. But I'll be back to talk about day 4, Thursday. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the cross-examination by the defense, what that yields, what that gets us. We will see. Time to talk. Let me know in the comments below if you're paying attention to all this. I've seen a lot of people say they don't even want to hear about it. They're not paying attention to it. I had 2 conversations with people who have no idea what's going on. So I guess maybe the world's not watching because it's not televised, right? So you have to actually kind of like find these transcripts and find people like Tisa Tells, who's out there doing lives and paying attention to all and giving us all the rundown. I really appreciate that woman. So if you really want like serious up-to-dates, go check out Tisa Tells. I'll put a link in the description to her channel. I just think she's brilliant. She's a really great personality. So a lot of people aren't even paying attention, but let me know if you're someone paying attention. Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe if you've not subscribed, and I will see you on the next time to talk. Peace.